Hi everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Career Hacking Pod. Today's guest is Rod, who's a magician. I'm pretty excited for this episode because I think it's going to be really unique and really fun to have a conversation. We'll just get started and dive right in. So if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, just start off with what you're doing now and maybe a bit about what you've done previously. Actually, for some context, I'll just say how we met. So we met at a really fabulous event run by Danny Williams, and it was in one of the tallest, if not the tallest building in Manchester, which was really great. So if you want to check out more about that, you can see my LinkedIn or Rod's LinkedIn, and I'll link them below, as well as Danny's page for more events. If you want to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah, my name's Rod. I'm a close-up magician based in Manchester. So I've recently taken the leap to go full-time with it. I was working in sales before for 2 years. I just felt it was time to take it full-time. But yeah, I've been performing for about 7 years now as like a side hustle. I did it through university and I did it a bit through school as well. And yeah, so I'm kind of just in Manchester trying to establish myself as a close-up magician. And great to be on the podcast.
It's really great to have you as well. And I think it's such a cool thing to talk about because I know two magicians, but I'm kind of I'm curious. I'm sure everyone listening is curious as to how you get into that profession. So when you said that you've done it before at uni and things and previously, how did you get into it, if you don't mind telling us a bit about that?
So I was one of those kids when I was young. Whenever I saw a magic trick, I would just hound whoever was doing the trick to tell me how it was done. I would for example, if it was a event where my sister's friends did a magic trick, for example, I would just be following them around trying to get them to tell me the trick. And I learned a few tricks that way when I was 10 years old or so. And I kind of phased out of it because I wasn't really learning any good tricks. I was just learning the 21 card trick, if you're familiar with that, just easy counting tricks, that sort of thing. But it was when I was 17, I saw David Blaine's special on YouTube. So David Blaine is, if you don't know, is an American close-up magician. He kind of kickstarted the street magic trend. So I watched a video of him on YouTube and then started researching a bit about books and how he did his tricks and stuff like that. And then it just kind of spiraled. And once I kind of get hooked on something, I kind of get pretty obsessed with it. So it was a good solid 3 years of just doing magic constantly and nothing else. And here I am now.
You seem to be doing pretty well for yourself as well, as in making it in a full-time career. Do you have any David Blaine style stunts, you're gonna lock yourself in ice for 12 hours or something that he did, anything like that, or is it just more close-up magic?
Yeah, mainly just the magic side for now. Although I appreciate the entertainment side of doing the endurance stunts that he does, it's not really my thing. And I don't want to die as well, so that's another big thing.
That's true. I feel like I used to love his shows and things, but watching the interviews now, and he's actually, I probably pushed myself too far. I'm that sounds about right, because when you watch back, they're just insane. Yeah, good magician, but a little bit, he's a little bit unique, I suppose.
Most magicians are, to an extent. I like to think more.
Do you think you need to be unique to be a magician?
Good question. You usually don't get into magic if you're popular at school. I'll say that. You don't necessarily have to be really weird to if you're the captain of the football team, you're probably not going to get into magic. That's from what I see amongst other magicians. It's similar. You either get into magic or comedy. To be honest, it's you try and find a hobby to impress people, and then it kind of turns into something more than that.
Yeah, I mean the same things happened with podcasters, I assume. But I see what you mean about comedians. Maybe I need to interview a comedian next to keep the ball rolling.
Can't help you
there. So with magic then, I suppose that explains how you got into it, but how's it been making that into a full-time career? Because it is something quite different. So have you found that there's a demand for it, or that maybe you've got to create the demand. I know you're quite active on like social media, well, LinkedIn and things like that. So do you find that you need to brand yourself more, or do people come to you because it is so unique?
Yeah, well, I'm in a bit of a strange position because I'm not originally from Manchester. I've been here 2 years now, and I was here for 3 years for uni. But I'm from Cheltenham originally, which is kind of near Bristol, if you don't know where it is. So I kind of built up a good um, kind of like a reputation, I guess. I was getting a lot of requests for gigs down there, stuff like that, and then I moved back up here. So basically, I've had to kind of start again because it's like other side of the country, so it doesn't. A lot of the gigs I won't be able to do because they're like in the Cotswolds, and I'm up here, so it's just too far to travel for weddings and stuff like that. So I've kind of had to start things again. But I mean, the same principles apply. It's just a matter of getting to networking events, meeting new people, put myself out there, doing social media stuff. I mean, I've not been too active recently just because I've only been kind of doing this full time for the last 2 weeks, and before that, I was very very busy with my sales job. Hence why I quit my job to pursue this. But yeah, I mean, it's something I'm going to be more active on social media. I've been trying to push the LinkedIn as much as I can. But yeah, it's just about putting yourself out there, isn't it? That's kind of my goal.
I think you've definitely gone about it the right way. So, like, going to networking is a great chance
Mm-hmm.
because when we met, you were doing the like magic tricks there. So, I think that's like the best marketing you can do at a networking event is literally be like, everyone's got a drink, everyone's having a good time, and it's the space that you'd normally be in, I assume, for like events. So,
Mm-hmm.
you can just be like, yep, this is what I do. So, has
Yeah.
networking helped you, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's basically like when I'm at a networking event, although I'm not like performing constantly, I am having conversations with people and learning about their business as well. It's not all about you at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, it does lend itself very well to magic because you can kind of go around the room, show a few tricks to people, and people are going to remember that a lot more than if they get an email from you out of nowhere, which I'm finding is a lot harder. So yeah, definitely the warm networking approach is a lot easier and a lot more effective than just emailing tons of people and doing it the cold way.
Do you find it fun then going networking, or do you think there's like an element of pressure? Because when I go networking, I tell people about the podcast and potentially find, like yourself and other guests and things. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it is just networking, just to get to know people. Like you
Mm-hmm.
say, find out what they do, find out about them. So do you find it fun, or because there is that element of you're there to, find potential clients or events, is there a bit more pressure to it?
I mean, I don't kind of go there with the mind that I'm going to get these people to hire me or anything like that. I'm more just there to get to know other people. I think coming at it from the relationship side of things and wanting to build relationships rather than trying to take something from everyone. I think that's the better angle, to be honest. And I mean, a lot of relationships as well. Like you're not going to get stuff from straight away. It might be a couple of years down the line they have something they need a magician for. So yeah, it's not all about that instant reward for me. I think just getting to know other business owners as well in Manchester is nice, and obviously just building those relationships. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the right attitude to have with networking. There is that stigma that everyone goes just to be like, "Hi, this is what I offer, and how can I help you?" And they write you off if they're
Mm-hmm.
like, "This person isn't going to do anything for me." So I think there's that stigma, and I think it's changed. And by the sounds of it, you think it has as well. What inspired you then to make that leap from working in sales to then becoming your own boss and starting your own business? Like, was there a kind of linchpin moment, or has it just been bubbling for a while?
Bit of both. Bit of both. So before I started my sales job in Manchester, I knew I wanted to do the magic full time at some point, but I didn't really have a plan. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this because I was stuck at home in Cheltenham at the time because it was like after the lockdown. I was just desperate to leave the home and kind of start my own life. Um, and yeah, I guess it kind of kept going in the background. The thought of wanting to do it full time, and then basically my sales started to decline at my previous job because I just wasn't my heart wasn't in it anymore, and I could just knew it was getting to the point where I was going to have to leave the company just because the company was great and everything, but it's just my heart wasn't in it, and basically I found a letter I wrote to myself 3 years ago, and it said something like, "I hope that by this point you're a close-up magician, you're doing it full time." And I think for me that was kind of the point. I was like, "Crap, I should probably now's the time to do it." I've got, I haven't got like a family and kids and everything, so it's like it's my expenses are as low as they're ever going to be. So if there's a time to take a risk, it was now. So yeah, just said it was time and quit my job, and yeah, did it.
I mean, I don't think there's anything better than having encouragement from your like previous self. Like from a few years ago, I think that's probably one of the best reasons I've heard for being like, okay, I've done this because of this reason.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually really inspiring that you've had the goal for a while and you've stayed committed and now you've done it. How are you finding it now that you've taken the leap?
Yeah, good. I mean, it's been about 2 weeks now, and I think the key difference is obviously you got so much time on your hands, and you have to be very regimented and disciplined with your time. Otherwise, before you know it, you're kind of watching YouTube, and it's the whole day's gone. So yeah, just being disciplined is so important. And I think because I worked in sales, it's pretty similar because like no one's looking over your back to see what you're doing. I mean, you have a target, but no one's watching what you do every day. So in a way that's kind of prepared me for this. But yeah, it's just kind of finding my feet at the moment and figuring out what are the most effective ways to spend my time, basically.
It'll just take probably time to realize, okay, yeah, prioritization and things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think coming from a sales background probably will help you a lot because you've got to have like great person skills, which I do think you have anyway, and communication skills. But also, like you said, with targets, if you work in sales, it's usually a target driven environment, and
Mm-hmm.
you've probably got to be able to like cope with the pressure and stay like keep a level head. So I think that's probably helps you because the pressure from the sounds of it is probably different running a business than being in sales because it's more on you rather than a company. Do you think that you've got the kind of, I don't know the right word for it, like resilience to handle that pressure?
Yeah, I do, and I guess the reason is because I've basically got no other choice. So I think I said I was doing the magic whilst I was doing my main job, but the reason I never quite took it to the next level is because I never had that desperation. If that makes sense. And I think quitting my job and saying I'm going to do this full time, I've put myself all in now. I've got no choice basically. So, and obviously it helps that I'm doing what I love as well. So I think it's those two factors are a good combination for success.
It sounds like a good combination. You one, you love your job, and then two, you've got to pay rent. So
Exactly.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, great motivator. Um, do you see yourself like continuing to do this? I mean, you've only just started on your journey, but do you think so far you like, you like it and you're enjoying it and you want to continue doing this like for quite a long time, or do you think it'll just be for a little bit to kind of get that break and figure out what you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, this is the long term goal for me. At the moment, it's more just kind of putting in the groundwork, and I'm going to see the results kind of pay off. But there's a bit of a delay, and I think when I'm really busy, when I'm performing a lot more regularly than I am now, it's going to be a lot better than it is now. Because at the end of the day, the performing is the bit that I enjoy. It's not sending out loads of emails every day. Um, Although it is alright when that the consequence of you putting in the work is going to be me performing more. So that makes it a lot easier. But I mean, beyond just doing it as a job, I think just getting to the point where I'm self sustaining, and I've got kind of like I've got a schedule. I know what's coming up for the rest of the year, and I feel secure in the job. I think that's the point I want to get to. Beyond that, like I don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now. I can't really see that far. So yeah, I'm just kind of taking it day by day, to be honest, and not. I do have like financial goals, but I'm not looking too far into the future because I don't really know what's beyond that point. If that makes sense.
Mm. Do you find it all exciting then? It doesn't seem like it's too stressful, like a little bit, but do you find that the excitement's outweighing the stress of it all?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm not. a very stressful person, to be honest. I mean, I do get stressed, but I'm generally pretty optimistic. Like I have this weird belief that everything kind of works out because it has so far, to be honest. um, I mean, I just think, what's the worst that can happen, you know? And it's not that bad, so that gives me a bit of comfort.
So if someone's like watching or listening, how would you kind of say, right, you can have this optimistic attitude that you've got? What's your tips to have that outlook on life?
I think it largely is a personality thing. Even compared to like a lot of my family, I'm quite chilled. But I mean, what do I tell someone else? I'll just say what's the worst that can happen, right? You know, if you have to move back home for a bit, or couch surf for a bit, is what it is. I
Yeah.
mean, as long as you just do what you can do, and I think what's the expression? You know, control the controllable. You do what you can. If you can't control the consequence, so there's no point worrying about it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
If that
Um,
helps.
It does. I think sometimes it is just kind of your outlook on things.
Hmm.
And I think it's easy to get wrapped up on things that you can't control and
Hmm.
then try and stress about it. But if you take the stress out of it, you actually have a lot more free time, which is something I learned recently, which is great. So, with like thinking back then, what did you do before sales?
So basically, before I'll take you back to uni. University, I studied biology. So yeah, didn't really use that. I did that for 3 years, University of Manchester, and then moved back home. And the idea was to save up for traveling around Southeast Asia. And morning of the flight was basically when the lockdown was put in place. So I had to cancel our entire trip that I'd spent 9 months saving up for. So that was a pretty low point for me. And then and I was stuck at home for the lockdown, and I wasn't able to do any magic. So I kind of got into music and started producing and writing a bit for that. And then the lockdown ended, and I was desperately needed to get out of the house because I'd been stuck at my parents' house for so long. So yeah, got the sales job that kind of came up, and been doing that. Did that for 2 years in technology, cyber security, IT sort of area. And here I am now.
Yeah, that's crazy though, having a degree which is like completely different to where you ended up. Do you think like if you could do it all again, would you do the same thing? Would you change anything? Like, would you go to uni?
I mean, if I was to do it again, I would say yes, because I mean it's led me to where I am now, and I've met my best friends along the way as well. So I wouldn't say I wish that never happened. But I mean, if I was to talk to someone that hasn't gone to uni now, I would ask them, like, do you have a passion for what you want to study? Because I think that a lot of people just go to university, like I did, just because it was the subject they least disliked at school. um, so, I mean, I'd advise them to take a year off and have a think about what they really want, what they really enjoy, and then look down the apprenticeship route, look down the entrepreneurship route if they want to do that. But yeah, I think people kind of rush to uni because it was the done thing, but I think that's kind of changing now, to be honest, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I agree. I think slowly that mentality of it's uni or not nothing, but it's like going straight into work. I
Hmm.
think apprenticeships are filling that gap.
Hmm.
I think I'd probably give some similar advice to someone is maybe look at your options
Hmm.
and don't necessarily dive straight into uni because it's not for everyone. So yeah, I agree with that. Um, with like your business then, is there any advice you'd give with that? I know you said like you're 2 weeks in, but there is obviously a lot of build up to making that decision and taking the jump.
I think something that's helped me is having a good few skill sets. So I went through a phase of doing a bit of freelance graphic design, for example,
Mhm.
and that has served me really well because I've done all my branding and advertising, my website, that sort of stuff. So I think just building up your skill sets, even if you don't know whether it's going to be useful later down the line, I think just having a few skills in your arsenal that you can use when you need is helpful. And also the sales as well. That's a skill that I guess I've acquired. That's helpful. In terms of starting a business, I mean, obviously, if you can find something you got a passion for, that you don't feel like you're working. That's the dream, right? So I think that should be a goal for anyone. But I mean, on the business side, I can't give too much advice there just because I'm too early on. I don't want to say anything completely wrong.
That's okay. What's been your favourite thing then so far?
I'm trying to think of my favorite performance I've done. One of the craziest ones I did when I was in Cheltenham. I did the Gloucestershire Business Awards, and it was at Cheltenham Racecourse, and there was about 700 people there sitting at tables, and I went on stage and did the trick for 700 people, which was pretty cool, pretty scary as well. So I'd never,
700.
yeah,
Wow.
I'd
So
never done a trick to more than like 6 people at a time, and then I did it to 700 people. So yeah, even now thinking about it makes me kind of nervous. It went all right, thankfully. I was still pretty new to magic at the time, so I don't know how they let me do that. I guess
what
you got
kind
to
of trick?
the zone.
Yeah, what kind of trick was it then? If it's in front of 700 people.
Well, basically they had like a camera which kind of zoomed in and it was displayed on a big screen, so it was a close up trick. But the trick was I signed a card, and then someone who they brought up on stage signed a card. Both cards are torn up, and basically the cards go back together, but they're mismatched. So my half of my card goes back together with half of his card, and there's 2 of them, so it's kind of a cool souvenir to hand out.
It's cool that you did it as well, like with close up when it was like being filmed. Is that
Mhm.
different then to like being in person? How do you find like which do you prefer?
I prefer close up, like just performing for small groups. I think you can just see the reaction. It's kind of nice, and you can talk to people individually and learn a bit about them and cater your magic towards the group of people. So, for example, if someone's talking about like they play poker or 21 or something like that, I can do like a cheating routine, like a trick where I kind of cheat at cards. But with a larger audience, you've got to have like a schedule. You've got to have a list of tricks that you're going to do, a script. So it's a bit less flexible. I mean, there are good things. I've done a couple of performances like that, and it is fun writing a script, and you can be bit more creative in that way. But yeah, I just prefer being around people and amongst the crowd.
That makes sense. Are you allowed into casinos then if you you know how to cheat at card games?
Um, I mean, I don't think I'm big enough that they'd have me on like a. I think you've got to be like Dynamo or David Blaine to be at the point where you're not allowed to get in casinos. But maybe they have a list of magicians in the local area. I don't know. But it's quite
Maybe.
hard to get in casinos nowadays anyway because they have so many different things in place to stop that.
Yeah, that's true. I wouldn't recommend trying it, but you never know. They might have like a wanted poster of your face being like, "Do not let this guy in." Um,
Also terrible at gambling as well, which doesn't help.
so what do you think has been the most tricky part so far of like the transition from having a 9 to 5 and then like a corporate life to then becoming a small business owner?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I mentioned before was obviously the time management side of things. And I guess it's a bit harder being on your own the whole time because you're working in an office before you have like a team around you, but it's quite a lonely lifestyle. Um, but I mean, there are ways to mitigate that. Like I'm going to start working with friends as well in like co-working areas. I mean, getting to know other magicians as well, like Jason, for example. I went for a drink with him the other day and learning what he does, what I could do differently, and just nice having that network of people in a similar profession. So I think you can kind of remediate the lonely aspect of it. I'm trying to think of those are the 2 things that come to mind, to be honest.
Yeah, I think co-working spaces are a great idea because in both of the places I've worked after uni, we've
Mhm.
been in co-working spaces at least for a little bit. I like it because I'm very chatty, so I like to talk to like everyone in different businesses when I'm
I'm
going
not.
to go out
I'm
for
not.
coffee in the morning. It's like it's
Used
the
to
best thing.
stay in my little corner and crack on. I just like the atmosphere. It's not necessarily that I want to talk to loads of people, but it's nice
Yeah,
to be around other people and not turn into a hermit.
That's fair. You just be a hermit around other people in the corner. But
But
if
yeah,
that, yeah,
it's
yeah,
different when you're I mean that's the admin side of the job, and then there's like the performing side of the job where you're around people like for 2 hours and you're talking to pretty much everyone in the room. So it's very
yeah,
different, and I guess you kind of click into another gear when you're performing. You kind of it's like a show. It's like what do you call it? A stage presence, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, like is it like being a showman and stuff? Like you've got, if, I suppose, if you're an entertainer, you've got that different persona a little bit that you put on for when you're doing a gig.
Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say it's like an alter ego or anything. It's kind of a more confident, more outgoing version of myself. Um, I mean, you have to be. I mean, you have to click into that gear, otherwise you're just gonna be shy to approach anyone, and yeah, you can't have that. It's not a good look.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you find that that's like tiring a little bit? Because even though like you're just kind of presenting like different, I don't know, you're emphasizing certain parts of yourself, like being more extroverted, making sure like you're communicating. Do you find that when you've done an event, you maybe feel a bit drained from doing that? Yeah,
Yeah, completely right. I mean, it's like a good feeling. It's like a feeling of like I worked hard, and because it's a lot of focus as well. When you're doing magic, you're doing sleight of hand. You've got to be paying attention to what everyone else is doing, where everyone's attention is. So yeah, it is exhausting, but it's a nice feeling. It's a nice buzz afterwards. And anyone in that performs will know you get that like buzz after performing, whether you're like a musician or a magician, a comedian. There's a feeling afterwards, which it's kind of like the performer's high, I think they call it. But yeah, it does. You do come back to reality eventually, and
eventually.
realize
Yeah.
your life isn't like that the whole time.
How long does it normally take you at an event, like with getting prepared and everything else? Like, because if that's quite, I'm guessing it's a few hours, so that's probably why it's like quite, draining at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean it depends on the event. If it's like a wedding, it'll be 2 hours. Small party, an hour minimum usually. Most I've done in a day, I did like a 5 hour event. There were some breaks, but that was rough because I'd lost my voice the day before. I basically couldn't speak the whole time, and yeah, it was rough because I was having to like scream just to get my voice to actually make a noise.
Oh my
But that
goodness.
that was probably a bit too long, and it was like constantly performing. There wasn't like lulls. It was just like full on. But yeah, a good 2 hours is a good time, and you're not too exhausted after that.
Mhm. That's what's your like favorite type of event then? So I'm guessing it's not a 5 hour event, but what's like your favorite type that you've done?
I like weddings. Weddings are fun because everyone's there to have fun at a wedding. No one's. At the corporate event, it's a bit of a mixed bag because people are there just to listen to the speeches, have their dinner, and leave. But weddings, people want to be there, and sometimes they're a bit tipsy as well, which helps. Within reason, you don't want them to get too drunk because then they don't pay any attention. But if they're a little bit tipsy, then they're a lot easier to fool, basically. And yeah, everyone's just happy at a wedding. It's often during the day and outside. So yeah, weddings, I would say, my favorite.
And what about like networking events? Do you find them okay? Like, because when you go, I know that you do like a few tricks and stuff, but do you think that that's quite fun, or is it a bit different?
Yeah, networking events are just a little bit more chill because I'm not constantly doing magic and I'm speaking to people. And so yeah, I enjoy them as long as the music's not too loud. That's always a nightmare when you're screaming in someone's ear.
That's
Uh,
true. That's true. Yeah. What's your favorite networking event you've been to?
I mean, I've not done that many at this point.
Right, I thought you had because like I just keep seeing on LinkedIn, so I assume you've done quite a few.
I've done I've probably done them in short succession. That's why I've done
Okay.
like three or four of the last 3 weeks or something.
Okay.
So
Never mind then.
the first one I went to was the Manchester Hospitality Network one, which is really good. That was a really good kind of first. That was the first one I did. Met a lot of people that I've kind of kept in touch with, so that's good. And then there's the next level one with Danny. which is really good. In the penthouse suite, which was it penthouse suite? Yeah, it was the top floor, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which is a great view of Manchester. There, met some nice people. Did the business introductions one. I think those are the main ones that I've done. I think there's a few others around that I've seen, but yeah, I mean they've all been good. I think I'm kind of used to going up to people at my events, so it's not as anxiety inducing as it might be for other people.
Yeah.
Just because I kind of got that practice approaching, you know.
You're in your element when you're at a networking event then, by the sounds
No,
of it.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm in my element, but
I'd
I
say you've got a
feel
lot
like,
more practice in your day job than other people though.
yeah, exactly.
Thank you everyone for listening or watching today's episode. I really appreciate everyone who, takes the time out of their day to listen to the amazing conversations I get to have with some wonderful people. So I really appreciate everyone's support. Thank you to Rod for being on today's episode. If you want to check out more about, him and his social networks, I'll leave them below. If you want to, check out the podcast on any other like social media platforms, or if you're listening on Spotify and you want to look at the YouTube video, that'll all be linked down below. But yeah, I have taken a little bit of a break from podcasting for a little while. There's been a few changes. I'm now blonde or strawberry blonde and not got the dark hair anymore. There's just been a lot going on in my personal life, so I just wanted to take a step back from the podcast. But I really appreciate everyone that's continued to follow me and the journey of everything that's been going on. So I hope I can get more content out soon. And I've got a few more interesting interviews like lined up in the pipeline, so you'll get to hear some really cool conversations. Thank you everyone to your support. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Have a wonderful day.